Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the STEAM Forward podcast. As always, I'm your host, Savannah, and today our guest is Diamond Robbins, and she's here to share her experience as well as her career in the engineering field. So please help me welcome Diamond.
STEAM Forward podcast.
Well, welcome in, Diamond.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. You came highly recommended by Pastor Linda to be on the podcast. So just give us some background of who are you? Did you grow up in Florida? Did you grow up somewhere else? Just give us some background.
Yeah, definitely. So for starters, my name is Diamond. I grew up in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina to be exact. A very small town, I guess you could say. I actually came to Florida for school.
Right.
So I started out, I did all of my primary school and stuff in South Carolina. Then I went to college in Atlanta or Decatur, Georgia.
Yeah.
And then I transferred to a college in Florida, FAU, Florida Atlantic.
That's awesome. So is there lots of differences between South Carolina and Florida?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Florida is so fast paced, right?
Right.
And in South Carolina, it's definitely a lot slower. More country for sure. I call it the country suburbs. That's where I grew up. When people ask me, I'm like, I'm from the country suburbs. Because it's very slow paced. I could say in Florida, there's a Publix on every corner. In South Carolina, there's maybe a 1 mile one way and then another maybe 5-10 miles another way.
Yeah.
So it's completely different for sure.
Yeah. My family is from Tennessee. They've lived there for a good while. So we technically say they're from Tennessee. Yeah. And it is so true. Because you go there and you're like, you feel like time moves a little slower.
Yeah. I came here and I was like, whoa, life is just kind of moving a little too fast.
You're like, is it the next day yet?
Yeah.
And then here you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have that day back. But yeah, it's so bizarre, how you just go a few states over and it's completely
different.
And so when you went to FAU, what was your major?
So I went in as, they actually got my major wrong. Oh. So my advisor put it in as computer science. And, but I was supposed to go in as electrical engineering, which is what I completed with. But initially, when I was at the private college, Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia, I started out pre-med. So I wanted to be a doctor. I actually wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Really?
Yeah.
And why'd you change your mind?
I did some more research and I realized that medical school is not for me. So I did some more research and I even emailed professors and sat in on different classes because I came across engineering and I'm a very hands-on technical person. So when I was looking into different degrees, I was like, I want to kind of stay within the medical field, but not be a doctor. And I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to do anything where I had to patient care.
Right.
I wanted to kind of be more behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I looked into engineering, and it's actually funny because my senior year, my mom had me go to an engineering camp at Clemson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't want to do this, and it was for biomedical engineering. And I was like, you know what, but I had a great time. And I was like, no, this just seems like it's too much for me. I don't think I'm ready for that. I think I should just stick with my bio, my chemistry. But yeah, I ended up loving electrical engineering. But the college that I went to didn't really have that. So I started out, I transferred from pre-med to biomedical engineering for undergrad. Then when I went to FAU, it was the reverse. They didn't have biomedical engineering. So I was like, okay, let me just stick to electrical engineering. And that's how I got to where I'm at now.
So do you think that when your mom recommended you go to the engineering camp, it may be some kind of misconceptions or perceptions that we have of engineering as a whole?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
When I went, they were very robotics based for the camp. And I think robotics is cool, but I knew that that's not what I wanted to do. So it was a lot of fun and being able to talk to different people and learn what robotics is, because at the time that's what the push was. Because as I've learned now with working in the medical device industry, robotics it's huge. It's a big deal. So, but at the time I was like, no, I just wasn't interested. And it's funny because now I have a degree in electrical engineering and I know how to code and do certain things. So it just kind of came full circle for sure. It's like my mom knew what she was doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it sounds like to me. So intentional. And for the people watching, what exactly does electrical engineering entail?
Yeah.
What are maybe like the possible jobs that you can get with electrical engineering, and what qualifications or things do you learn along the way?
Yeah, so with electrical engineering, it's a very broad field. You have your hardware. So anything that's inside like your phone that would makes the components of a cell phone or makes the components of a computer or even like in electric cars, there's a, I guess you could call it like a motherboard or something, So a lot of those components, that's what we focus on. When we get to like robotics and things like that, you have your electrical and your mechanical components as engineers. But for me in college, I mainly focused on the electrical components and how that can be utilized in the medical industry. So with that, I can say that since electrical engineering is so broad, there are so many opportunities. Like the possibilities are definitely endless. And I'm glad that I decided to change my major to electrical engineering because I've had the opportunity to work for electrical companies. I've even had the opportunity to work for medical companies. And being able to just kind of see what my interests are because my degree was so broad. If I would have started with biomedical engineering, that I
would have put a limit.
Most definitely. It would have limited me to just medical and being like a design verification engineer or something along those lines. So I'm glad that I made that change and I was able to kind of dip my toes in different waters and see what's best for me.
Do you think because maybe also the city that you live in gives you more opportunities? Because I've had a few friends who majored in engineering and where they live now, they're like, there's no jobs for the engineering major that I did. So would you say that maybe even thinking about where you might live after could really dictate your career choice?
Absolutely. From what I've learned with being in South Florida, for the most part, I wouldn't say biomedical engineering, but the medical and device industry, it's a little slim, but there are so many small companies here that you're able to move around and learn as you go. With electrical engineering, my first internship was actually based in California. So
you flew there and did the internship?
I actually was able to do it remotely. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, I was able to like do everything remotely. And because I believe in South Florida, but I could be wrong, one of like the biggest or main electric companies is was FPL. So that's kind of it, and I wasn't that lucky to get that opportunity. So I think in South Florida, to me, like the medical device, you can work for FPL and do things like that. But like I said before, with electrical engineering, since it's so broad and you can really just go anywhere. You could be an industrial engineer, you can do anything.
So with biomedical, what would that entail for you? So now we go from chemical and now biomedical. What does that, because you're currently doing biomedical engineering.
Yes. Right? So I'm actually right now getting my master's in biomedical engineering. And I've worked for two medical device companies, manufacturing companies. And I like it. I think right now it's just trying to get into a different door so I have better opportunities that I'm able to use what I've learned and like actually be able to showcase my skill set. But I really enjoy it. I think that it's completely different than when I worked at the electrical company because it's a little more like fast paced a little bit. There's so many regulations that you have to know and there's so many things that happen that you have to make sure that you understand what's going on so that if the FDA comes in, it's like, okay, we got it, So it's cool. I get to learn so many different things and I like knowledge. So I like being able to sit at my desk and like read a procedure and like go ask questions and say, hey, what does this regulation mean? Or how does this pertain to us in this way? And it helps me understand the importance of the medical device industry and what really goes on behind the scenes to help like doctors and nurses and just healthcare. So it's pretty cool.
So would your job consist of, are you testing these products? Are you making sure that they're up to standards and regulations? Are you putting them together?
Right. So I've done so many different things, but currently I'm more on the quality side.
Right.
So as a quality engineer, I make sure that we are following the systems that are in place based off of FDA regulations and different standards.
Yeah.
So ISO standards. So I make sure that our QMS system, our quality metric system, is it's as perfect as it can be.
Right.
Right. So let's say a document comes through. I review the document. If there's something that's not in compliance, I'm like, you know what? I have to reject this. Here are the notes. Yeah. And that's pretty much what I do right now.
Do you think with like all the medical, I feel like there's so much advancements that happen all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so is it so fast paced because the advancements are like always going? And like, I feel like every time, I don't know, I just feel like in the medical space, which is awesome because it's helping people. But I feel like it's just like, there's always something
There's always
new.
something new. Yeah. I think since technology is advancing, medical devices, medicine has to advance just as quickly. Because let's just say something happens and we're following procedures or following a certain method that was performed like years ago. And I think what I'm trying to say is pretty much like, if something isn't working, let's try to find a way to make it work a little bit faster.
Right.
So in medicine, that's very important because we're looking to save a life as fast as we can. Yeah. And if we're trying to adapt to technology, it has to be like, it has to coexist the same. Because like with robotics, for example, like how we're talking about before, that changes everything, right? Yeah. So if we're able to go into surgery and not have to worry about cutting this person open because we don't have time, we could just put probes in and do it as fast as we can. That cuts down hours. Yeah. So I think it's important that we try to follow the trends of how fast technology is moving, because it allows for us to save lives a lot faster and just come to a quicker conclusion or a solution to how can we save this patient.
You know what I love about your field of engineering, I'm thinking about it in this moment, is that like you're not scared of technology.
Yeah.
And you kind of like embrace it and say like, yeah, humans aren't perfect. And sometimes if we can use our beautiful brains and like our thought processes to create something that can make like human quality, just our quality of life better.
Yes. Yeah.
Why not embrace that?
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's at first, when I first started, it was a little intimidating. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, I'm an engineer. I'm new to this. I don't know what to expect. And then you walk into a facility and it's like, you see all these machines and they're making things. You're like, whoa, what is this? And then now you're intrigued. And then you go to these meetings and you're like, wow, I'm like a part of this. And then you have all these ideas and you share ideas with like your managers. And it's like, well, like that's a great idea. And then you quickly realize that like, just because you're in this one facility, you're helping, I'm working with like maybe a couple people, you're helping so many people around the world, believe it or not. Yeah. And I always say that I used to call like biomedical engineers and like engineers in the medical field superheroes. Yes. Yeah, like behind the scenes superheroes, because I think a lot of the work that we do does kind of go a little, not unnoticed, but it's not as recognized.
I don't think you put the thought process behind it.
Yeah, to think like, where did this come from? Yeah. That's what it is.
You're the nurse, the doctor, the surgeon. And you don't think that, no, there was people in place before.
Yeah. Like who made the medical bed, or who decided that this is the right probe for this or the right tool for this. And it's pretty cool. We even get to work with doctors. Yeah. Take their ideas and turn them into life. So it's a really awesome field. It really
sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So after we get our master's, what's next?
Yes. So I'm still trying to work in the medical field, really, as an engineer, in the medical device industry. Right now I'm into like quality work. So it's helping a lot because I'm able to learn what policies and procedures are and the importance of them in process flows. And without that, without that foundation, me personally, I don't think that I will be as successful. So I'm very appreciative of what I'm learning right now. So once I get my master's, I want to be able to take that and eventually either if I'm a design engineer or wherever that goes, or even if I'm still a quality engineer, but just take that, my degree, what I learned in school, what I've been learning so far through my internships and as my full-time job that I have now, and just really try to advance what's going on because technology is advancing and it's moving pretty fast. So
it's an exciting world to be a part of.
Yes, most definitely.
Love that. Well, I think you have the best attitude for it because you're like, we're always like, it seems like you always want to be on top of the issue or on top of learning something new that comes along with it. So yeah, this is very intriguing. I did not know that much about biomedical engineering.
Yes, it's awesome.
So as we like to wrap up our podcast, we like to do a word of the day.
Yes.
So what would be your word?
I would say my word is perseverance.
And why is that?
So it's been a journey to get to where I am now, right? So I can say that I am where I am today because I persevered. I made sure that no matter what struggles or challenges came my way, that I still became that engineer that I always wanted to be. Or maybe not always wanted to be, but something within the medical field. And I think that it's very important that if you have a dream or a goal, and even if certain things seem like they're not going the right way, just kind of persevere, have faith, and just push through because at the end, it's always going to work out good for you.
I love that. Yes. And I think you have the right attitude for perseverance because a lot of people can go through a lot because it sounds like it was a journey just to go to school, as we were talking prior before the show. So some people can allow that to kind of teeter and like throw them off the path. But I think that it's just inspirational that you're sitting here and you're like, and I love it. And I'm having the best time ever.
I'm having the best time. Yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you, Diamond, so much for your time.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure we'll collaborate sometime in the summer with all this engineering stuff you have going on. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And as always, a special thanks to our sponsors, the Children's Trust and Trinity Church. And don't forget that there are 3 ways in which you can listen or watch this podcast. If you'd like to listen, follow us on Apple or Spotify. If you'd like to watch, follow us on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and click that bell for post notifications. Steam Forward Podcast.